Building Science 101 is sponsored by Anderson Windows and Doors, Builders FirstSource, Huber Engineered Woods, Polyguard, Sashco, and ViewRail.
All right, my friends, Building Science 101. We're back again with episode 5. Where is building science? Steve, can you help us find it?
Oh, yeah. Hold on.
Oh, here it is.
Wait. Oh, yeah, I got it right here.
Fly away.
It's everywhere.
Science.
It's everywhere. You know, one of the biggest myths, I'm so excited to do this episode because one of the biggest myths I always hear, well, you know, Steve, we've been a builder. We've been building for like 10, 15 years, and we started using building science. And it takes a while for that to compute. And I was like, wait a minute. You said you're a builder for 10 years. Yeah. And you're starting to use building science. Oh, yeah. We're starting to use building science. We're looking at using, exterior insulation. And I say, okay, did you ever nail 2 boards together? Yeah, of course. We've been building for 10 years.
All day long.
The minute those 2 boards get nailed together, the drying potential changes. The thermal properties of each board changes because they have a coinciding face that is now touching. Water can't get through there, but it can be held in suspension in there. Water management issues. Building science is in everything we do.
That's right.
In building.
That's right.
If we dig a hole in the backyard to put a foundation for a shed, we're messing with building science.
For sure.
Because we're changing the hydrology of the ground.
That's right. 100%.
Right? And we hear all the time that, hey, I'm going to start using building science, or as an architect, we're gonna start applying some building science principles. And it's like, have you ever drawn a wall section? Of course. So just so happens that have 2 of them here, right? We have a bottom plate on each one. You can see it there. And then this wall here, we have 2 different types of sheathing in case I don't like to leave the remodeling crew out, right? So you have the house that has the board sheathing.
Yep.
And then you have the one that has a sheet good on here, right?
And this is an exterior wall because it's got a double top.
But it's an exterior wall, so it's load bearing on the outside. We have that double top plate.
Yep.
But the reality is, even without insulation in there, I'm messing around with building science.
For sure.
Because when the wind blows here, that board sheathing changes the pressure here from there, and it blocks it. And even if I didn't put a building paper on, I still just have those little holes now that air can get in there. And likewise, if it was raining while that wind was blowing, then that water can get into that system. And now it's inside that cavity. If I have heat on the inside that I'm heating, well, that heating energy is now going into that uninsulated wall, and it's trying to dry that moisture that got inside the wall.
The physics, whether you're trying to build a passive house or just building a shed, is going to act on that building assembly the same.
We alter it. Now, we might not get the controlled environment we're seeking, building a wall this way as a 2x4 uninsulated wall, but nonetheless, building science is present in everything we do. So as a builder, as an architect out there, you really need to start understanding and that very basic premise that building science is an integrated approach to everything we do in building.
That's right.
It's not something that you apply later on. It is, by default, part of every decision that we make.
It's not a product. It's not a technique. It's an understanding. And that's what this series is all about, is giving you the knowledge and the understanding. So when you look at a building, you look at an assembly, you see it with those same eyes that Steve and I do, to understand how time, how gravity, how water, how air, how moisture is going to affect and modify that building over time.
Yeah, I mean, I was really fortunate. I mean, I had a really small time at a large architecture firm after graduation, but I tell people I really, broke my teeth out on working at Building Science Corporation. So I only know this. I was never taught bad habits. I was only taught the good habits and such. And all of those myths were somewhat dispelled.
Yeah.
Right? Joe would never say, Of course, building science is here. I mean, the minute we nail two boards together, we're messing around with it. But the interesting thing also about it is that marketing has gotten involved. Now, I don't want to be hating on marketers, but it seems like the minute they get involved, kind of myths and ideas seem to get tweaked a little bit, right? So I remember years ago working with a builder, and he was showing me a marketing pamphlet from one of his competitors in the area. And it said, and they were building 2x4 walls, and most of the market was building R13. And they had the nerve to say enhanced insulation package because they went to R15. Granted, I get it. It's a step up, and they take every marketing advantage. But when you sit back from the building science perspective, you sit there and say, yeah, that's kind of an enhancement of R nothing.
Yeah.
Right? You can say whatever you want, but the problem I have with labels, and I hate them, and I can sit here and rattle off how many passive houses I've done, how many platinum homes I've done.
I bet you did a lot of houses in the green building days as well.
Green building, energy crafted homes, all of these zero energy homes. But the reality is that we want to design and we want to integrate that building science in such a manner that we're just delivering the best possible product.
That's right.
Right. The problem with labels that I have is people say, well, I want a passive house. Well, that's good to have the conversation. And homeowners might think they know what they're talking about when they say they want a passive house. And I actually have a good story about not knowing passive house. The very first passive house project that I've ever worked on, we're meeting with the client, and he says, I want to get passive house certification. I mean, passive house was like in the U.S. for about a month or two.
And they wanted to certify.
He's like, I want a certified passive house. And he's like, you know what that is? And I was like, oh, yeah. Then I excused myself, went to the bathroom, and I'm in there Googling passive house.
What does this mean?
So I'm like, what the hell does this mean, right? So I come out and I say, yes, we were talking about passive house. Yeah, that's a series of metrics, energy use, air tightness that came over from Europe. And it's basically rules to build by to achieve a certain level of performance. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, building high performance is good, but I hate it when people say, well, we build high performance homes. What the hell does that mean?
That's right.
Does it mean it's an enhanced insulation package that you went from R19 to R21? Or are you really doing something with that house, right? I have builders. I was at a conference and the guy says, oh, we build really good houses. I said, airtight too? Oh, yeah. We build some of the tightest houses in the state. And I said, well, what's a blower door number on a typical house for you? And he said, well, what's a blower door? I said, in my mind, I'm saying, you have no clue.
You have no idea what I'm talking about.
An airtight house is, but yet you're going to sit across the table from these clients and say, hey, I build the best houses in the state. Mm. And you have no clue whether you do or you don't. Yep. And you might, in fact, be doing it, but you don't know that you do. Mm-hmm. And this one is kind of a few tips to homeowners when you're interviewing the builder or the architect. Now, it's real easy to sit across the table from the architect and say, hey, can you show me your portfolio? Can you show me, what you've done in the last? Can you give me some references of clients? Start asking them questions like, what's your water management strategy on a new construction house? What's your thermal strategy on that house, or your vapor strategy, or how do you achieve air tightness in your homes?
Yeah.
If you want to get somebody that really understands, and all those questions pertain to builders too, right? What's your water management strategy so that I can ensure I don't have a leak in my basement?
That's right.
6 months down the road.
For sure.
And so understanding that building science is a part of it, as builders and architects, we need to do our job and be able to ensure that we're going down the right road. So again, labels, they're somewhat bothersome to me, because we so much use these as, oh, well, I do this, I do that. Nobody really knows what the hell they're doing or what those labels are. They're just trying to draw some line in the sand that says, I go here, I go here. Oh, well, I go here. Well, yeah, but then I do an enhanced insulation package and go there, right? And it just kind of progressively makes it so that those labels, they kind of cloud the reality of what you're doing.
That's right.
In building science.
Yeah, building science needs to be integrated into everything you do. You need to have a good understanding of it.
As an architect, I know I've seen a lot of plans where, and in our early days at Building Science Corporation under the Building America program, we were going out and working with production home builders to try and build a better product. And, the architects would be like, hey, this is the house that we did. These are the 3 houses we designed for that development. Go ahead and add on whatever you want to do. And it's like, add on. No, we're not adding on. The reality is if you had done your job, we wouldn't need to add on. We may need to enhance, but we wouldn't necessarily need to add on. And I'll give you another short story because we have a little bit of time here. I'm sitting in a room, there's probably about 12 people, and we're talking about bringing air handlers in from unconditioned attics inside the house. And this is up in Northern California. And the architect is there. And she's saying, we're just not going to really be able to find any space to bring that down. And I said, okay, that's really interesting. I said, I have a couple of questions for you, if you could entertain them. I said, have you ever, do you have powder rooms in your house and in your house's designs? And she says, of course, we have a powder room in every house. And I said, okay. I said, have you ever not put a kitchen sink in a house? No, she looks at me like I'm the crazy one. No, well, of course we put kitchen sinks in. You need a kitchen in every house. I said, well, then what you need to do is you need to prioritize that 9 square foot mechanical closet with the same emphasis that you place on the kitchen sink and the powder room.
It's a great point.
And then we wouldn't have a problem. It's a choice that you're making not to make building science happen.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a great analogy. Great example.
Not integrating it to the process, right? We build houses, we integrate all kinds of stuff, but all of a sudden we can't bring ductwork inside. Oh, we can't do that. When I was working for Artistic Homes, I did all of their designs. In our heyday, we built probably somewhere around 6,000 or 7,000 homes in New Mexico and West Texas. And the gentleman that was in charge of doing the mechanical design for the company, he also did the commissioning, which I thought was brilliant.
That is smart.
Because he can find out, hey, if we ever have a problem, he's the one that understands what the problems are, and he can reintegrate those solutions into the new plan.
That's really cool.
But we basically worked it out with him saying, Steve, all I need is a 3-foot by 4-foot closet somewhere in the kind of center 30% of the house.
And if you give me that, I can provide the ducts that go up and into the joist bays.
Into joist bays, or we would drop ceilings in the hallways or something. We would always find a solution. And in 6,000 and 7,000 houses, we always had the mechanicals inside the house. We always had the ductwork inside the house.
That's awesome.
And even back then, this is probably, 15 years ago, our blower door numbers were 1.0, 1.2.
Those are great numbers.
And this is a production home builder, right? Not some guy that's meticulously doing his own house.
Yep.
Right? We're framing 10, 12 homes a week, and we're still hitting those numbers.
That's really impressive.
And HERS ratings of, 55, 56 back then too. But the reality is, building science is just really a perspective. It's understanding first that, in fact, it's there, right? And you have to acknowledge it. It's kind of like you have to acknowledge that you have a problem, like you've been ignoring building science.
Yeah.
Once you get over that hump and you accept building science, now it's how do I integrate it? And, I have a bunch of designs where I could come up here and show you a ton of examples where we padded out this wall with rigid insulation. So it added to the thermal properties. But padding it out gave us that aesthetic change in the face of that elevation, and the upper floor step back now. So you can use building science to your advantage and use it to make walls move in or out, the position of windows. Those charge the different aesthetic properties of a house, whether it's an innie or an outie or a midi, depending on how that is and how do I want to approach that, but integrating it. And the cool thing that I think about building science is, people say, well, can I do this? We do that. We can pretty much do whatever we want to do. We just want to know what the solution, like what are we trying to solve for? And then somebody makes a material that has the right perm rating, the right thickness, all of that, the right thermal properties. They all exist there. And the question is, how do we integrate that stuff? And, that has actually gone flip side, that the world has gotten a lot smaller in, say, the last 15 years. We're importing stuff from Europe. You and I have both been over there on trips, checked out factories, how they make it. They make great stuff. But the reality is I have probably a dozen houses that use drywall as the air barrier on the ceiling level. And all 12 of those houses are Passive House 0.6 or better, right? So don't sit there and say, well, drywall can't be an air barrier. Of course it can. And yeah, maybe it cracks. Maybe a little air moves through there and my 0.55 goes up to 0.59. Oh my God, right? It's not the end of the world. But the understanding as a designer, when you sit back, the first thing I look at is I have to put all of these pieces into this house. Which ones can I tweak to make better building science and a better integrative process?
That's right.
And it's not that when I use the drywall as an air barrier, the only tweaking was I sealed it around the perimeter and I created a flange. That's it. Everything else was business as usual. Drywaller didn't know the difference.
So great.
So, when you're out there, you're designing buildings, you're building buildings, that mind should be going. And I know I try and leave you with a thought on every one of these. I'm going to leave you with this one. If you build the same house the second time that you built the first time, the same way, you're not doing yourself justice, your client justice, or the environment justice. You should have learned something on house one.
Boy, I totally agree, Steve. Every house should be a little bit better, incrementally better than the last house you built. And I would say that's true even for me as a custom builder, that every house is a one-off. Every house is a prototype. I still am using the same systems, often the same subs, the same materials. We're going to make every house a little bit better, get every detail a little bit tighter, a little bit better than the last one.
I was talking to one of your project managers out here earlier this morning, and we were talking about remodeling. He's remodeling his own house. And I said, the funny thing about remodeling is you can get a PhD in building science if you go and you slowly remove some of the siding around the window and take a look at why is it rotted there and not here?
That's true.
Why is that crumbling here and not there? Why is this all stained here and not there? If you start asking the questions when you're taking these things apart, you're going to find those solutions to be able to integrate and put your building in a position for success.
This episode of Build Science 101 brought to you by our friends at ViewRail. ViewRail is America's first choice for floating stairs and modern railings. Now tie this together for me, Steve. We've got a company that makes beautiful staircases. How does that fit in with building science?
Well, history will tell us if we build beautiful buildings, people take care of them.
That's right.
So if we put a beautiful staircase in a beautiful building, people love it, people take care of it. And, I'm being an architect, I certainly care a lot about performance. Obviously, we're here talking about building science, but it has to look as good as it performs too, right? That's an equal status that we have to build as builders and architects in there. And, ViewRail, they bring that to the project.
For sure. Steve, I've always said that staircases are the crown jewel of the house. When I build a detailed staircase, I get to show off my craftsmanship as a builder. And what's really cool about ViewRail is you may not have a 50-year-old finish carpenter who specializes in stairs in your town as a builder. But you know what? When you partner with ViewRail, they're going to build it in their factory with their excellent craftsmanship, with their precision, and then you're gonna assemble it on the job. And I'll tell you what, you as the builder are gonna get that feeling of, wow, this must be an incredibly well-built house. Look at the staircase, the craftsmanship, the precision, it's all there. It's really cool.
Yeah. And they got a wide spectrum of choices, right?
Yeah.
If you go on their website, I mean, there's all kinds of different materials for wood, different stair styles. So there's something certainly there to suit your needs.
For sure. And last thing I'll say about them, family-owned company, right in the heart, made right in the heart of America. Excellent people to work with, super friendly. They've done literally tens of thousands of these, so they've encountered every problem you might have out there, and they're really, really good people to work with. So you can learn more at viewrail.com, and big thanks to these guys for sponsoring. So good, Steve. Guys, I'm going to give you a little quick preview. We talked on this episode about really how do we integrate building science? But the next episode, we're going to go a little longer, a little deeper. We're going to be talking about achieving building science. That being said, Building Science 101.
I'm putting my boxing gloves on for Mother Nature.
Steve and I will see you next time on The Build Show.